Hello and welcome back to another month's book review. This month we're covering mid February to mid March, and I've only read three books, but all three of them have been really really amazing. So as usual, I'll cover all three books one by one, and yeah, let's begin. So this here is book number one, Fahrenheit 451. I'm not doing this chronologically, which I probably should have, but this was the book that I had closest to me. So um, Fahrenheit 451 is of a dystopian future where firemen, the jobs of firemen, is to find books in society and then light them on fire and burn them to ashes so that nobody ever reads them. This is an imagined future where the reason they're doing this is because books have conflicting ideas and books have creativity and books lead to original thought, and the way that society has evolved in that particular setting of the book is that people have become addicted to short form really engaging content, 10-15 seconds of video, music that everybody likes, shows that everybody likes, pamphlets, magazines, stories, everything that everybody likes, nothing too complicated and nothing too conflicting and nothing too contradictory, so that people don't start reading three different books and developing three different ideologies. What people want is attention grabbing short form content which all up in your face all the time, so that you're hooked and you're docile and you're not engaging in independent thinking. The job of the fireman is to find anybody who's holding on to these books and burn them to ashes so that they maintain peace and stability in society. I loved this book because a lot of the descriptions that they had of the future was tremendously accurate. It was really amazing to read how even so long ago people kind of knew where society was headed. And that's exactly where we're all pining for attention, where we become addicted to short form content. We cannot see beyond, 10-15 seconds of an attention span. Um, and and we have become polarized, and independent thought and contradictory ideas have indeed started influencing our heads. So um, it was amazing. By the end of the book, the protagonist, who is a fireman in himself, understands that he really needs to preserve these books because these books are necessary for humanity, and eventually that leads to a big wild goose chase, and it's brilliant. But a lot of the concepts that were defined in this book were quite amazing, and maybe one day I'll do a detailed video explaining each and every paragraph and each and every uh, concept I found really interesting in the book. But there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to analyze, and there's a lot to love about this book. I have been reading a series of dystopian books now: Brave New World, Anthem, 1984, Fahrenheit 451. I read a little bit of The Handmaid's Tale, and it's really really nice. I actually think if people want to get a good understanding of society through entertainment, through fiction, reading a ton of dystopian novels is the way to go. So yes, highly recommend that book. Please read it. It's really good. And if you do decide to read it, please read alongside it or eventually afterwards reading it. 1984, Brave New World, and Anthem. All three really, really, really good books. The second book is was in an audiobook form, and this was a book I had been reading at the end of last month's video. It's a book called Ikigai. Ikigai talks about the longevity of life and how to create a life for you where you do what you love, and you find your purpose in life, and that sort of leads to eternal happiness and a long, fulfilling, prosperous life. Again, really, really good book. My brother and my father were of the opinion that I was too young to understand it, and that I won't appreciate the contents of the book. I think they were wrong. I really did appreciate the book. The book covers a lot of things, from how to find the right career for you, to exercises you can do every morning, to diet you should follow, to practicing daily gratitude, to hanging out with people. It tells you how to live a rich life, not in monetary terms, but in terms of experiences and longevity. Again, really, really good book. Again, a book that could be analyzed further in a separate video if I ever find the time to do it. But highly recommend it. Please read it. The third book that I read again in an audiobook form was Plato's The Republic. Of all of the books that I have been covering so far in my video book review journey, I guess, not so much as the all of the books I have read, Plato's The Republic is probably the book that deserves analysis of every page that has been written, because there are so many interesting ideas and concepts that it covers. The theme of the book basically is Socrates, who is the main character in the book, although it's been written by Plato, has a discussion with a group of his friends about what justice is, what justice means, what justice truly is, and what is the nature of justice, as well as if it's implicit and natural in human beings to be just, or if it's just an idea that has been enforced upon him by the constraints of society. So if there was no society and man was let free, he would not then be just, naturally speaking. And the way that Socrates explores this idea, so the entire purpose of the book is defining what is justice and how it comes about, and whether it's natural in human beings and whether it's good for human beings, and so on and so forth. The way that this is done is Socrates starts out planning a civilization, planning a city from the beginning, and he engages in what's called a Socratic discussion. So Socrates would put forth an idea, and he would ask questions, and he would question the basic assumptions of that idea until he refines it and redefines it until he reaches where he wants. And his friends would partake in this process. Like, you'd ask, do you think this leads to this? And his friends would say either yes or no. And then he'd say, okay, so if that follows, then can we understand this? And then his friends will say yes or no, and so on and so forth. Lots of trial and error. It reminds me of machine learning a bit. It actually is exactly like machine learning. Anyway, so Socrates starts the journey of a city from the beginning of its from its beginning, right? And he traces how a city evolves and grows and changes. And his thesis is that within that process, within the growth and within the, I guess, spread of a city, somewhere along that part, the idea of justice is born. The concept of justice is born somewhere within the process of a city being evolved. And his idea is to evolve a city from the beginning with the help of his friends, and understand at what point justice takes place, and then explore what justice means, and use that information to really define all of the questions. What justice is, whether it's natural, whether it's good for human beings, is justice important? He answers all the questions, and it's a really brilliant book. I wish there was, instead of a book, it was a game, because the book is just a lengthy discussion. It's a long debate and discussion among Socrates and his friends, but I cannot participate in that discussion. So there are lots of places where Socrates will make an assumption, and he'll ask his friends if he challenges his assumption, and his friends will just agree, and they'll say, yeah, no, we agree with you, we don't have a problem with your assumption, but I do. And I would like to question him one day if time travel becomes possible and stuff like that. Um, but but yeah, so Socrates has some incredible discussions about not just justice, although that was the topic of the book. He has discussions about courage, about valor, about freedom and equality, about different types of governments and their pros and cons, about the nature of people, and it's all structured in the way that a city evolves. It's brilliant, and it really deserves a lot more critical analysis. Again, great book, perhaps a little more complicated. If you have the capacity to stay concentrated and focus in and really critically analyze what's being said or what's being written, then I recommend reading it. If not, let's hold off, and maybe one day, you'll have a much better understanding of how to understand a book like this. So that was all of the books I've read this, well, I guess the last 30 days. All of them have been great. For the next few days, I have started reading the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and this will be featured in my next video. Again, a really good book. I've had a lucky streak of reading really good books. The Almanac of Naval Ravikant talks about money and happiness, as far as I understand. Okay, let's see. He mentions what he talks about. So, happiness, wealth, wealth and happiness. I was right. So it talks about wealth and happiness, and I have been reading it, and it's great, and I'll review it next time I meet you. And I plan to read Zero to One at some point. It might be the Thiel Zero to One. It might be after I read the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. But great book. So yeah, so that was my book reviews for last month. As usual, please tell me what you're reading down below, and tell me if you have any recommendations. And yeah, and if not, I'll see you again next month. Goodbye.